Well, every Friday morning at 9 o'clock, we always enjoy breaking format a little bit, doing some more long-form conversations and welcoming in people who have great stories to tell in Kansas City, kind of notable folks who either can share something with the audience, whether it is informative, whether it's entertainment, whatever it might be. And earlier this week, I get all these books that people send me. Authors are always sending books, and it's nice, and some of them are good, and some of them are not so good, but I'll save that for another day. And I reached out to my buddy Carl. He's done a lot of nonprofit work in Kansas City, and I said, Carl, do you have any need for these? And he said, yes. I'm actually working with this new group, Healing House in Kansas City, and we'd love to take these books off your hands. Some of them are self-help. Some of them are just historical books, but they're great. And I started learning more about Healing House in Kansas City and Bobbi Jo Reed, the founder and the CEO, and she was kind enough to join us in studio here on a Friday morning. So, Bobbi Jo, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Pete. Thanks for having me.
Well, your story is really an amazing one, and it's a story to me of recovery. It's a story of retribution. It's a story of kind of helping people and giving back to this Kansas City community and beating a lot of odds that many people do not get to achieve. So your story is what? Take us through it and how you became to found Healing House 22 years ago now.
Awesome. Okay. Well, I was raised in Kansas City, Kansas. My dad was a police officer. I was the youngest of three kids, stair steppers. And there weren't child labor laws back in my day. But so at 12 years old, I started working a job at an old store called Save On over in Kansas. My brothers, my whole family worked there. But I had always had low self-esteem. I'm a 12-year-old. I started hanging out with older kids, and they drank on the weekends. And I remember the first time I had a drink, I drank until I got drunk. And I thought, I have arrived, right? I thought it made me fit in with the older kids. I thought it made me a better dancer. And, we all think that. Yeah. And a comedian and all that stuff. So I could not wait to do it again. And so, I was an alcoholic by the time I was 13 years old. Mm. And I lived in a home where everybody was siloed. Everybody had their own life going on. So nobody was really paying a lot of attention. My dad always worked two jobs. And now I recognize that my mom had some mental health problems and addiction problems herself. And so I just really spiraled out of control pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And, lots of bad things. My first intimate experience, was in a car accident where my back was broken in three places. And I was in a metal body brace for a year on Librium, Darvocet, and Valium, all three of those every day. And so I was still drinking. And my first intimate experience was a rape in my back brace at a party. And
wow.
Back then, they didn't talk about date rape. They didn't talk it. I didn't even know this guy.
So how old are you when that happens?
13.
You're
No, a week before. The rape was 1 week before my 16th birthday.
So at this point, you're an alcoholic. You've gone through a traumatic experience.
Yes.
Physically, and then this happens, and you're not even 16 years old.
Yeah.
So your life from there turns into what? 16, 17, 18, as you get into your late teens, what's your life look like?
A mess. I got pregnant from rape, and my parents sent me to have an abortion, and that was a big deal for me. Mm-hmm. It hurt me to the core of my soul. And
this was a different one? Different rape?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when you're a woman and you have addiction problems, you find yourself in a lot of bad circumstances. And so after that, I remember coming home from that, and we never discussed it. We
Really?
never talked about it. And so my answer, of course, was to numb myself. And I just went further and further in my addiction. And I spiraled out of control, actually. For 22 years, I was in my addiction. And where it landed me was being trafficked. And that's a horrible, soul-robbing, humiliating. In the 12-step program, we talk about incomprehensible demoralization. Mm-hmm. And I got there, and I became an it. And I was so embarrassed about where my life, I had always ran back to my parents' home. That was my safe haven, right? Whenever I get beat up or just so strung out, I'd go back there. And so I was too embarrassed at that point to even contact my parents because what I had became. And plus that, when you have somebody that's trafficking you, they threaten to kill your family and everything else to keep control of you. And so he would beat me so severely, though. I ended up living under, the boxes on the back of semi-trucks. There was a liquor store downtown Kansas City, Missouri, and I lived underneath one of those. And please believe I was not drinking to have fun anymore. It was essential for me because I was so sick. If I didn't get a drink, I was shaking out of my skin. And I lived under that box truck thing, and I couldn't even communicate with people anymore. I was considered a wet brain is what it was.
So how old are you at this point?
Early 20s.
Early 20s. So you're just prime age, and this is what your life looks like.
20, 30-ish. I got sober at 34 years old. When my dad passed. My dad had always been my hero, even though I didn't know him well. He retired from the police department after 37 years, and 9 months later, he passed away. And we were just building our relationship.
Is that right? So what year is that?
1994.
That he passes away. And you had started to get sober that year.
I was binging.
Okay.
Because I couldn't. I'm allergic to alcohol, okay?
Yeah.
I'll say that. I break out in handcuffs. Anyway, so after he passed, I tried to drink myself to death for 1 month, and it didn't happen. And I ended up at a detox downtown, awful place, 18 bunk beds in one unventilated room, everybody coming off the streets, everybody very sick. And all I know is I got there in a cab, and I don't remember calling a cab. I had alcohol left, so I don't.
Yeah, you don't know why you ended up there.
I do today. I know exactly why.
Yes,
I know God made that happen, but the guy that drove me there couldn't even speak English. But somehow I got to this detox.
Yeah,
and so I know it was a divine intervention in my life.
So that starts your turnaround.
Yeah.
That stay, which comes in the mid-90s?
Yes.
Okay.
Mid-90s.
So after your father had passed.
And so at that time, I was binge drinking because I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, and I had post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, depression. I was on 33 pills a day.
Wow.
Now, I want to tell you, this is 29 years later.
Yeah.
And I take 4 prescription pills a day. Okay.
Yeah.
So back then, I was much younger taking all that medication. But what I did to support myself back then is I baked stuff like banana nut bread, zucchini bread. I made fudge and homemade cookies. And I would take it to this outdoor flea market and sell it on the weekends. But I remember being at that detox. There was no deodorant. There was no shampoo, conditioner, body soap, washcloths, anything. And so I figured out at the flea market where I sold my baked goods, I could buy the little hotel bars of soap for $1 and the little shampoos so there were people that sold those things out there. So I'd take some of my earnings and I would buy hygiene products for the people in detox. And I would take them down with my baked goods I had left. And you would have thought I'd given them $1 million for some hygiene products. And chocolate chip cookies homemade. I remember a little girl, I went in one day, and she was totally beat up. Her eyes were swollen shut. And I sat on her bunk with her, and I talked to her, and I shared what God was doing in my life, and gave her some homemade chocolate chip cookies. And she said, "You made these cookies for me?" I said, "Yeah, baby, I guess I did." And that is what changed my life. I tell people sometimes a chocolate chip cookie saved my life.
Oh, that is so great. That is so great. Bobbi Jo Reed is here, founder of Healing House, a CEO as well. So that starts in 2002. We're going to get to that story, what they are doing, the lives they are changing in Kansas City now that we've set the stage on how Bobbi Jo Reed ended up doing all this. So that is going to be coming up right after the break on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM.
Hey, it's Dan Bongino. You're listening to Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio, now on FM at 95.7.
On a Feature Friday segment, we are so happy to have on Bobbi Jo Reed, CEO and founder of Healing House here in Kansas City. So your story, your personal story, Bobbi Jo, is an amazing one, but I do want to fast forward to 2002, which is when you founded Healing House with $50,000 you had left from an inheritance.
Yes.
It was your last $50,000,
yes.
right? And
yes.
you find this perfect home in the Northeast, historic Northeast part of Kansas City.
Yes. And I had been looking for properties, and this nursing home had a realtor sign out front, and every time I called it, the voicemail box was full. But I went to go look at a house around the corner, and it was not set up right, and they wanted too much money. So I said, when I went out to my car, I said, Lord, I'm impatient. When you want me to have something, can you please just drop it in my lap? And then I turn the corner, and I'm on the side street of the nursing home, and the real estate agent is walking up the steps. And so I'm like, can I come in and see this? And she said, I don't care if these folks don't care. It was awful, Pete. It was awful. But I knew the Holy Spirit started jumping up and telling me this is it, but you got to act cool so the price don't go up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Of
and
course.
It was pretty awful enough. And the asking price for a 23-room house was $50,000, the same amount I had coming in the mail in 2 days. So I signed the contract that very day. And I started working on it before it ever became mine because it was a mess. There was a nurse's station in the front room, and the banker, I knew I had to get a loan to fix it up. And the banker said, we can't give you a loan because it's a commercial building. There's a nurse's station in the living room. And I'm like, give me an hour and a sledgehammer, and that nurse's station will be gone. And I took it apart, and I dragged it out to the front to get rid of it. So that's how it all started. And the women, here's why I wanted help women. There were 900 women go through inpatient treatment in our city, like the 30-day thing. And there were less than 30 beds for them to go to when they got out of treatment. So they were returning where they came from. Because
they were back out on the streets. They had nowhere to stay.
Yeah, or in abusive relationships or bad circumstances. So I knew I needed help them. 900 women, less than 30 beds. So I knew I wanted a place for single women, that because people were compassionate towards women and children, but those that had lost their children or didn't have loved ones, they were going back to the street. So I got the house for $50,000. I'm not a real estate mogul by any stretch, but when I got done fixing it up, it appraised for $196,000. And there was a dope man that lived right next door to me, and I couldn't get him out with the police, so I called on a higher authority, and I claimed his house in Jesus Christ's name is what I did. And a year and a half later, we got the dope man's house.
Is that right?
Yes, and it was oh God. There's a movie out called the book is Beautifully Broken. The movie is Bobbi Jo Under the Influence. Please watch it because I don't have time to go into all the details. But I got the dope man's house, fixed it up. I got it for $37,000. A man woke up, a non-believer woke up in the middle of the night and they slept separately, and he went to his wife's room, and he said, God woke me up and told me to give her the money for that house.
Is that right?
That's right. And
wow.
You got to watch the movie. It's just incredible. So I got that house and started fixing it up. And then I had women coming that were pregnant, and I couldn't have babies in the rooms because I utilized every inch of space. So there's an abandoned apartment building a half block away. When I got done with the $37,000 house, it appraised for $186,000. So all this gives me something called equity, which is very cool. So there's an abandoned apartment building. I kept looking in the windows. Nobody was doing nothing with it. So I found out who owned it. And I was able, with the equity, to purchase 14 one-unit apartment building. And I had these pregnant women. So the women would stay with us, go to the hospital, have their baby, come home to a fully furnished apartment for them and their baby to start their new life and journey together. And so it goes. And now we have 15 homes that we've redone in historic Northeast. And this, I would do a disfavor if I didn't say this. This area was crime-riddled when I got there. Gunshots, not 3 hours without gunshots, pimps, drug dealers, gang members, prostitutes, all up and down our streets. And they're all gone now.
That's amazing.
We have gotten so many abandoned houses and redid them ourselves and then put our folks in there, and it has transformed our whole community. I mean, it's incredible. So over 15,000 people have came through our program. So we not only have a big administrative building, we have 15 homes, we have 30 apartments, we have a strip mall, and if I have time, I want to tell this story. And we have a recovery community center, but there's a patio off the community center, and we were on one side of the fence. The back of the strip mall was right butted up to that, right? Mm-hmm. So we had a tattoo shop, and they were out there getting high every day. And my people are on this side of the fence trying to stay clean.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I go over to the guy, I said, hey, could you please have your people quit getting high back here? It's triggering my people. He said, whatever, lady, move around.
Wow.
Well, I'm a little salty, so I had to shut my mouth, and I walked away. Not 2 weeks later, I get a call from a guy from Chicago saying, hey, I hear you're doing great things down there. I have a building. Would you be interested? And I'm like, I don't have any money. So he says, well, you know what? I'll owner finance. So it's 4 family apartments upstairs, 7 storefronts.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a mixed-use building, basically. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so I called my board. They said yes. My first official act, I wish I would have had a police body cam. I redid the tattoo guy's shop lease. Yeah. And I put in there no illegal drug use or will be tolerated on this property or you will be immediately evicted. So I proudly took that over to the tattoo guy that told me to move around and presented it to him. I said, honey, remember me? I'm your new landlord.
Oh,
you should have seen
great.
his face. It was priceless. And then I gave him his new lease, and his face was all scrunched up. He wasn't very happy, and I said, honey, if you don't want to sign that, you could just go ahead and move around.
Yeah,
I call
that's
that,
great.
That's a
great.
touche for God.
That's great.
But
that's great.
Let me tell you the things we do. We have a pregnant mom's home. We have men's home. We have women's homes. We have women and children's home. And what we have put together is there is no place on earth like this place. We have 52 employees. 46 of the 52 have came through our program and now work there.
Wow.
So we're peer-driven. We love on people like nobody else does. It's like a big family. I have my first tattoo I got at 60, and it says, welcome home, baby. And I'm going to get God loves you and so do I on the other arm. Because everybody comes through our doors. I don't care where you come from, what you've got, don't matter to me. We're going to love on you till you can love yourself. And I hug everybody that comes into our program.
That's amazing.
And I tell them welcome home.
What do you think, Bobbi Jo Reed is here, we got about 2 minutes left, but what do you think your mother would be saying right now if she was here watching you and what you built?
My parents would be, they'd be blown away. Blown away, both of them. And my dad, I always wanted to make my dad proud, but in my addiction, I knew I disappointed him a lot. I know my parents are both very happy with what I'm doing and the impact I'm making. Not only, we transform individual lives, but we have used those lives to transform our whole community. We have parenting classes. We have GED. I had 2 guys over 40 get their GEDs in the last couple weeks. So we teach people how to live. So you could go to treatment and learn about your disease, but you learn to live with us. We want people, and we have a 98, 99 employment rate at 2 months, right? So we're teaching people how to be independent and self-sufficient. I don't want to create people that are going to have to utilize the system forever. Let me teach you how to get better and live and be that parent or be that sibling.
What's the best way? I've got about 60 seconds for people ahead of the holidays. Help out, be a part of what you're doing with Healing House here in Kansas City.
Prayer. You can pray for us. We always take monetary donations, but we also need volunteers all the time. There's 200 people that live with us every day and 30 kiddos. So we got a full plate. If you have a loved one in need or you want to contact us, it's healinghousekc.org. And we would love to have you join our team. You know, people are dying every day of addiction. So please come help us as we help those in need.
Well, it's an amazing story. Bobbi Jo Reed, the CEO and founder of Healing House KC. That's healinghousekc.org. And the movie?
Bobbi Jo Under the Influence on Tubi and Amazon.
All right, there you go. I love it. Bobbi Jo, thank you so much for coming into our studios. We appreciate it. Amazing stuff.